Okay, all systems go. A good Davach, everyone, as we welcome in Michal, Stephen Holtzman, Saba, Aaron Swade, Mel Zachter, A.B. Spry, Yisrael Fisher from Tannersville, Shelley Zeitlin, Harrison Kletzel, Irving Fishbaum, Ben Zion Cohn, Mark Frankel, Eddie Chazan, Marshall Castle, what am I saying, Marshall Castle? Yitzi Muller, who lets us know that we have 67 days to go to half of Shas. Wow! So by around Mamish Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we will have hit half of Shas. That's really quite amazing. Dr. Guy, Mark Frankel, Eddie Chazan, Nachman Chapler, Moshe Lehman, Chaim Braun, Rabbi Kranz. Here in the shul, we have Berish Gesseman, Reb David. Great to have you holding the fort, David Helfgott on Kol HaLashon. We begin, sponsored by A.B. Spry. Daniel Rosenberg is joining us. Avram Hecht is joining us. We begin with the tefillah that all children that need to get into school should get into school easily without heartache for the parents. Tonight is the yahrzeit of the Neshama Yisera of my father, Olav Hashalom. His yahrzeit is this coming Friday. Aaron Tzvi ben Reb Meir. And of course, you wouldn't have me if it wasn't for my father. So we learned for his Lichtige Gan Eden. He should be a Melis Yosher for his family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael. Nathan Langner is joining us as we, Rabbi say, the good news is tonight's dafim, it's long, but it's not hard. We have pleasant dafim tonight, so sit back, enjoy the ride. And I believe finally, Shimon Deer is here. He was having some computer problems the last few days, getting in touch with us. Baruch Hashem, he's here with his trademark smile. It's good to have you, Shimon. Sandy Grunfeld has just joined us as well. And believe it or not, Eddie Chazan is here without a car. Unbelievable. On terra firma. And we're holding by the bottom line of Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. Bottom line, Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. Amar Rav. Rav tells us a historical vignette. Ano havei b'minyona debei Rebbe. I was there that by that vote that says that Kol HaKodim, whoever gets there first, is Zeicha. I was there by that vote. And they started with me. Because they started by Dine Mominus Minatzad. They started not from the greatest judge, but from the side. Says the Gemara, but I don't understand. You see, the problem of starting with the head of the Bezdin is because it says Loisana al Riv, and we darshan Loisana al Rav. You shouldn't answer against the Rav. So if the Rav would say his opinion first, nobody would be able to argue with him. So therefore, he said his argument last. But that is only by Dinei Nefashis. And therefore the Gemara says, Wanan Tanan Dinei Mominis, when it comes to financial matters, Vataris, Vatunois, and things that are Torah, Tomei, Maskilin, Min Agadol, we start from the head of the court. V'dinei Nefashis, but by Dinei Nefashis, by capital cases, Maskilin, Min Atzad, we start from the side. So here, this was a financial matter. So why didn't they start with Rebbe, the head of the court? Amar Rabba Berei de Rava, V'yisem Rav Hillel Berei de Rav Valis. Rabba said the name of Rava, and others say Rav Hillel said the name of Rav Valis. Shani Minyona Debei Rebbe. It's different, the court of Rebbe. The Kulahu Minyonayu, all of their votes were Minatzad. Rebbe held that Leisana al Rav, that drasha, is even by financial matters. Others say that due to Rebbe's great humility, he never started the vote. Rabba said the name of Rabba, V'yisem Rav Hillel Berei de Rav Valis. This is the way of the Gemara that sometimes when we have a sequence, like over here, Rabba the son of Rava, and others say Rav Hillel the son of Rebbe Valis, we say other transmissions, even though it has nothing to do with our Gemara, with the same sequence. Miyamais Moshe ad Rebbe, from Moshe until Rebbe, Loi matzinu Torah ugedula b'makom echad. We didn't find Torah and greatness in one place, packaged in one place. In other words, Torah and great wealth in one place. Now Moshe Rabbeinu, although he didn't take from the booty of Mitzrayim, he didn't take from the booty of Egypt, the Gemara says that Moshe Rabbeinu would become fabulously wealthy from the psilus of the luchais, which were solid heavenly sapphire. So from the days of Moshe until the days of Rebbe, you never found Torah and greatness in one place. So it was by Moshe Rabbeinu that he had the position to introduce the Gans Klal Yisrael Torah Shebiksav, and Rebbe would have the power to introduce the Gans Klal Yisrael Torah Shebal Peh with the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, V'loi, did you not have anybody? Ha'avi Yeshua? Wasn't he great and wealthy? No, Hava Lazar. He wasn't the unique in wisdom because there was a Lazar. So, okay, but what about when after Yeshua passed away, Hava Lazar? Says, you want to have a Pinchas. There was Pinchas that was equal in his knowledge. What about after Elazar passed away, Vavi Pinchas? Have a Canaan, there were the elders. Says, but what about Shaul? Have a Shaul. He stood in wealth and in wisdom above everyone. Says, no, at the same time, have a Shmuel. Says, but he passed away. Shmuel passed away young, 52. Says the Gemara, Kulu Shnei Kamina. It means that he had to be unique throughout his lifetime. V'avad David says, Gemara, Ira Hayir Iri. There was Ira Hayir Iri that was greater or equal to him in learning. V'anach Nafshe, but he passed away. Kulu Shnei Bainin. You need all the days of the person. V'avad Shleima, Chacham Mikol Adam. Have a Shimi Ben Gera. There was Shimi Ben Gera. But Shimi Ben Gera was killed subsequently. After David passed away, he left instructions to Shlomo. Says the Gemara, Kulu Shnei Kamrin. It has to be his whole lifetime. Havi Chizkiah, there was Chizkiah. Have a Shevna. The Gemara says, Iktel, Shevna was killed. Again, Kulu Shnei Kamrin. It's his whole lifetime. Vahavi Ezra. So here this is very interesting. We know that Ezra's second was Nehemiah ben Chachlaya. Says the Gemara, well, Ezra wasn't unique in learning because of Nehemiah ben Chachlaya. There was Nehemiah ben Chachlaya. Amar Rav Achabarei de Rava, and that's also how Rav Ashi was able to be the one to present the Gemara. For Afani Aimer Miyamais Rebbe Vad Rav Ashi, from Rebbe until Rav Ashi, Lo Matzinu Torah Gdula b'makom echad. You didn't have Torah and wealth in one place. In one person. Says Gemara V'lai. Vavi Huna bar Nasan. There was Huna bar Nasan. Says the Gemara, no, Shani Huna bar Nasan, the Mekev Havikayef later Rav Ashi. He was submissive to Rav Ashi. And therefore it was Ravina and Rav Ashi that presented the Gemara. Just getting underway in a beautiful Shabbos, Motzi Shabbos, as we learn the next Mishnah. Cheresh, a deaf mute, Roimeis Vinirmas. He could do transactions by hand motion, gesticulation, and you could gesticulate to him. Ben Meseira says even without hand motions, just kaifetz v'nikbats. Even though he can't talk and he can't hear, but he could he could mouth the words, and you could mouth the words and let him read your lips. This is less than nirmas. Of course, obviously, this is talking about somebody that wasn't a deaf mute from birth. If he was a deaf mute from birth, then he wouldn't know how to make the mouthing words. He wouldn't know them. But if he wasn't a deaf mute from birth, so you can mouth the words, and all of this is good only b'metaltalin, in order to do transactions with movables. And this was done in order that they could support themselves, but they can't sell real estate. Hapa'utais, young children, let's say for now 6 or 7, 6 by a girl, 7 by a boy, Mikron mekach, their purchases are good purchases. Memkar and memkar, and their sales are good sales. B'metaltalin, by movables. So right away the Gemara gets into it. What about Gittin? We are, after all, learning Masechtas Gittin. Amar Rav Nachman Machlokes b'metaltalin, by movables. Aval b'Gittin, everybody holds that to mouth the words are not enough. Divrei hakol b'remiza, everybody holds that you need to gesticulate. So the Gemara says, Pshita b'metaltalin tanan. It says movables, but not by Gittin. Ma'od is saying ma'af b'metaltalin, means even movables, kamash malon. Ikidam, right? There's another version of Rav Nachman k'machloikis b'metaltalin, just like they argue by movables. Kach machloikis b'Gittin, that Ibn Seira holds that moving the lips is enough. I vanan b'metaltalin tanan, which implies not by Gittin. Ema af b'metaltalin, even by metaltalin. Ha'pa'utais, as Marshall, who snuck in here so silently, will tell you, Moshe Meir, slow down, buddy.
It says even by metaltalin. That means metaltalin are higher level than get.
No, even by metaltalin. It's good even by metaltalin. But Messiah says no. By Gittin, we might think it's a necessity. Metaltalin maybe is not so much of a necessity, kamash malan, even by metaltalin. Now, ha'pa'utais, young children, mikhan mekach, their purchases are a good purchase, memkar and memkar, and their sale is a good sale, b'metaltalin. Va'ad kama, how young? Machvei Rab Yehuda Rab Yitzchak Berei, kivar shit, kivar sheva. 6 by a girl matures quicker than a boy. 6 by a girl, 7 by a man. By boy, Rav Kahana kavar shev kavar tamei 7 and 8, but Masyisa Tana kavar tesha kavar eser 9 and 10, and the Gemara says they're not arguing. V'loi pligi, it depends on the maturity of the children. Kol chad v'chad l'fi churpei. Each one is talking about a different class of maturity. B'taimamai, why do they allow it? I mean, he's not about das. In order that they should be able to support themselves if they don't have an executor. Now the Gemara throws in for Mark Frankel a little bit of Agadita. The Vayomer, and he said, La'asher, he said to the one, Asher al, he said to the one that's in charge of al meltacha, that's in charge of the meltacha. We'll see what meltacha is. Ha'itze levush, take out clothing l'chol oivdei Baal, for all those that worship the Baal. So the Gemara says, my meltacha. What is meltacha? What's the meltacha? It sounds like margarine. What's meltacha? Amar Rabbi Abba bar Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Dover animlol v'nimtach. It means the one that's in charge of the linen stock. Linen which is rolled, it's rolled between the fingers and pulled. This is interesting. There was a very wealthy man. Smart people cater to the Gedolei Yisrael. Smart people know that when you give to a gadol, it's like doing bikurim. When you give wine, it's like pouring nisachim. So, Kiyasa Rabdimi Am Rabbi Yochanan, Shigaloi Bunyam ben Numyan, there was a very rich man, Bunyam ben Nunyam, sent Lerebi, Sivni v'chaymis salsala u'malmala. He sent him 4 different types of linen apparel, linen, very, very chashuv garments, Sivnei, chaymis, salsala, and malmala. The Gemara says, Sivnei v'chaymis, Sivnei and chaymis were linen garments that were so delicate that you were able to fold them up, ke'amguza opalge, to the size of a nut and a half. Silsala or malmala, silsala malmala was so delicate, kepistika opalge the piska. You could fill it up to the size of an acorn and a half an acorn. My malmala, what's the lashon malmala? It sounds like mamala. It sounds like a you say to your child, mamala. What's malmala? Davar animlo v'nimtach. This is a linen garment that's made by rubbing and pulling. V'tu'usad kama. And if there's a transaction with a child, when is the sale voided? How much of a mispricing? The din is that it's okay up till a 6, like by an adult. What's the din of a gift of a child? A gift, you can't say really that it's for Kidei Chayav, or maybe yes, because it's important for a child to be able to show Akaras HaTayv. So Rav Yemer Amar Ein Matanas Matana, the gift is not a good gift. Ma'ar Bar Vashi Amar Matanas Matana, the gift of a child is a good gift. Afkua, by accident, they switched around the names. V'shodrei l'kamei d'Rav Mordechai, and they asked Rav Mordechai what the ruling is. So they sent him that Ma'ar Bar Vashi says Ein Matanas Matana. Now he knew that was not the case. So Amalei, so he said to the one that sent it to him in the wrong order, Amalei, and it's we want to welcome in Chaim Lerner. It's Chaim, it's good to see you. We've been missing you, really, really missing you. It's good to see you joining us. So Amalei and Moshe Jacqueline just joined us here in the shul. A pleasure to have you. And for those that are just joining in progress, we are 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Amalei, so Rav Mordechai said, you got it wrong. Zilu Amru Levar Mar. Tell the son of the master, that's Mar Bar Vashi. Lavachi Have Yuvda, wasn't this the Maisa? Ki Avi Koi Mar Chad Kare Ara. The Chad Kari Adarga, when you had 1 foot on the floor and 1 foot on the step of the ladder, Va'aminale, and Va'amarnale, and you told him, Matanasai Mai, what's the din of the gift of a child? Va'amalad Matanasa Matana, the gift is a good gift. Achas Matnas Shchivmira, whether it's the gift of a dying child, Echad Matnas Bari, or the gift of a healthy child, Achas Matana Meruba, whether it's a big one or a small one. And by the way, this is a very good revelation, that the reason why all over Shas we get some background information, like I remember that I was speaking to him, Akila the Bay Rebbe, on the porch of Rebbe, or I remember as he was leaning his hand on the doorpost. Why does it give us this background story? It gives it to us to let us know the accuracy of the transmission. Okay, just getting under the way and already, I told you, the Gemara will flow a little bit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvaro. I should say this, although it is a little bit far-fetched, but there is a possibility. It's a distant possibility, but there is a possibility that late tonight I might do a chok. I don't know, but the thing is that I had prepared the chok for Devarim Sunday, which is tomorrow. So if I could get it in tonight, the whole world will have it for tomorrow. So I'm tempted, but I'm still not my full strength, and I did a lot of talking already today, so I'm not sure. But if I do it chok, it'll be very late around the midnight hour tonight. So I'll send out a text beforehand if I do it. 2 lines from the bottom of Nun Tes Amud Aleph. Elu Devarim Amru Mipnei Darkei Shalom. Continuing the theme of this parak, the following things are said in order to maintain the peace. Kayin Kari Rishon, in order that it shouldn't be fighting over the aliyahs. The Kayin lanes first, Acharav Levi, after him Levi, Acharav Yisrael, and then afterwards a Yisrael Mipnei Darkei Shalom. Ma'arvin b'bayis yashin. We put the Eruv always in the same house that we put the Eruv echatzeres. We don't switch the houses. Mimnei darkei shalom. Now, at first, the understanding of the Gemara is so that the person that you put it in all the time shouldn't be insulted if you take it out of his house. But we'll see another pshat in the Gemara that it's because of Shada. We'll see that when we get into the Gemara. Bor shehu karav la'ama. here we have a irrigation canal. Now, my house is right by the top of the irrigation canal. So I'm the one that gets to dam up the canal to take the water first, even though later on in the line, Marshall is waiting, and he's upset that the water is dammed up. So in order that there shouldn't be fighting, we do it according to the ones that are closest to the top, and we go in that order. Here, I have nets where I trap beasts, birds, and fish. Now Marshall comes along and wants to take it. He says, look, I wasn't kinda. It's in my trap, but it didn't close up. See, Rashi says, if it's a trap that springs and closes on the animal, so then it's in my keli, I'm kinda. But here it's talking about that there's a fish in an open trap. Since it didn't close on them, I wasn't kinda. So Marshall figures, I'll let Rabbi Weiss set the traps, and then I'll come afterwards and take it. Right, Marshall? Especially if it's a...
I love when you do the work for me.
Right, I know that, right? So he just come in clear. So therefore, the Gemara says that he can't take it mishum gezel mipnei darkei shalom, because otherwise...
Can I ask a silent?
No, the Rabbi Yossi says, when we said it's gezel because of darkei shalom, so then if Marshall takes it, I wouldn't be able to get it back from him in court. However, Rabbi Yossi says that no, it's gezel gomer. It's real theft, meaning, of course, it's only d'Rabbanan, but it's real theft that if Marshall disobeys the law, I could get it back from him in court. Zev, what do you want to ask?
It says B'kedashtoi. That's why Kohen comes first. So why does it say like the Shalom?
Okay, the Gemara is going to ask that question, so be patient.
All right.
Next case. Mitzias Charashayta V'Katan, the fines of a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a minor. They don't have das, so therefore they really can't make a kinyan. Still, Marshall goes around and takes things out of the hands of shaitas and deaf mutes and minors. So the Gemara says, no, you can't take it. Mishum gezel, it's considered rabbinical theft. Mipnei darkei shalom. Otherwise, you'll have people like Marshall that will just, prey on these helpless people. Rabbi Yossi says it's not just gezel d'Rabbanan, but it's gezel gomer, that if Marshall takes it, we could get it back in court. Now here's another example. Oni amenakev b'rosh hazayis. There's a poor man, he climbs all the way up to the top of a date palm to knock off the dates. Now, he didn't touch them, he didn't hold them, so he wasn't kind of them. So, of course, Marshall is waiting on the bottom to catch the dates and to go away. Can't do that. Even though the guy on top was not kind of it, obviously he did all the work. So Masha Tachtov Gezel, you can't take what falls off. Rabbi Yossi, if Marshall does take it, it's Gezel Gomer. Finally, the Mishnah tells us what happens when you leave out the Leket Shikopeya and a Goyish Ani comes in. It happens when you have a distribution center and shul, and Goyim come to take stuff. So the din is, Ein mamachin biyad aniyah the kachavim b'leket shikopeya. We don't stop an ani that's a guy from taking the gleanings. That's the one or two pieces that fall from the hands of the reaper, the forgotten sheaf, or the corner of the field. Why? Even though it's meant for Jews, mipnei darkei shalom, in order to maintain the peace.
What's the difference between Gezel and Gezel Gabor, like in the Mishnah?
I explained that if it's Gezel D'Rabbanan, you can't claim it back in court. If it's Gezel Gomer Midrabanan, then if Marshall does take it, then you could claim it back in court. Now, says the Gemara, Minani Mili, how do you know that the Kohen comes first? Amar Rav Masnas, and then the Levi. So Amar Rav Masnas, Amar Krova Yichtav Moshe es HaTorah Azais. Moshe wrote the Torah, Vayitna ala Kahanim b'nei Levi, and he gave it to the Kahanim, the children of Levi. Says Gemara, we know that the Kohanim are from Shevet Levi. Oto Anolo Yadana the Kohanim b'nei Levi. No, don't we know that Kohanim is from the tribe of Levi? Ella, it says Kohanim b'nei Levi to tell us the order. Kayin b'Reisha v'Ada Levi. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Mamiach v'Nikshu HaKohanim b'nei Levi. The Kohanim b'nei Levi came near. Oto Anolo Yadina the Kohanim b'nei Levi. No, Ella Kayin b'Reisha v'Ada Levi. Rav Ashi Mamiach. B'nei Amron, Aaron and Moshe, B'nei Amron, the children of Aaron, Aaron and Moshe, V'yavdel Aaron l'akdisha kodesh kedoshim. So Aaron was made first kodesh kedoshim. And as Ben Zeb said, it says, Rabbi Chia bar Abba Mamiacha v'kidashtai. You sanctify him l'kol davashib kedusha. So Tana Rabbi Shmuel, what does it mean? We sanctify him. V'kidashta l'kol davashib kedusha l'ftayach rishon. He starts to talk first by a drasha, u'lavarech rishon, and he makes the bracha first, whether it's damaitzi, whether it's benching, v'lito maniyafa rishon, and he takes the first portion. So now, as Ben Zev asked, I don't understand what's going on over here. Amalei Abaya, the Rav Yosef, Mibnei Darchei Shalom. What do you mean it's because of peace? Doraisa, it says V'kidashtai. Amalei, so he says you're right. Doraisa, but why? Mibnei Darchei Shalom. Says, well, that's not unique to this din. As we said many times, the thread that runs through all Torah is peace. The whole Torah is because of peace. Its ways are ways of sweetness. All its past are past of peace. That's a Rambam in Seif Hilchos Chanukah, which is one of the Mamorim that I quote most often. I said this many times, that a person cannot be a quarrelsome person and a ben Torah. It's impossible. It's opposites. Elo Amar Abaya l'kidamar. You want to know what the Darkei Shalom over here is? It's like the Master said. The Tanya, now this is a brisa in Brachas that teaches us etiquette. The Tanya, Shnayim mamtinan zela zeh bekara. If, let's say, Shelley and Shimon are eating together from a joint plate, and Shelley has to go out to the restroom, Shimon is supposed to stop until Shelley gets back. Shloisha, if 3 people are eating from a communal plate, then ein mamtinan. If one of them has to go out, the other 2 don't have to wait. Habaytzeya, the one that makes the bracha, Chaim, makes the bracha on the maitzi, hu poishit yodei tchila. He gets to take from the relish, from the tchina, from the baba ganush, first. However, if he wants to give cover to his rebbe, or l'misha gadol mimenu, or somebody bigger than him, or rishus biyadai. Now here comes the Darkei Shalom. If the kohen wants to give his rebbe first, or somebody bigger than him first, he shouldn't do that, because we're afraid that'll lead to machlokes. Well, he was here. Why didn't you give him first? That's only by a meal. But not in shul the asilin suye. This is not something new. This was around 1,000 years ago. Fighting. They'll come to fight. Amra Masna. That's only on a day where there's a lot of people. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, the Shchichei Rabbin with a lot of people. On a Monday and Thursday, but on Monday and Thursday not. Says Ini. Rav Huna Kare b'Kahane even b'Shabbos v'Yom Tovim. Rav Huna, who was a Yisrael, got kohen even on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Says no, that's somebody outstanding. Shani Rav Huna dafilu Reb Ami v'Reb Asi. Even Reb Ami and Reb Asi kohane chashivei Eretz Yisrael. The most choshev kohanim in Eretz Yisrael meichav avikaifele were submissive to Rav Huna. I told you that I remember. It's a fascinating memory that I have. That in the 70s there was a very, very dire situation in Eretz Yisrael. And they declared a kinnis and a fast. and Rav Moshe and Rav Yaakov, they came to the Svardish shul, and we davened mincha in the Svardish shul. There was like 1,000 people there upstairs. Still remember Yossel Fishman Lane. And Rav Moshe got called for Rishon, even though there were probably 100 Kohanim there. Rav Moshe got called for Rishon. I still remember it. Amar Abaya, Nakatinon, this is a Gabai's manual. We have a tradition, Ein Sham Kayin, if there's no Kayin, Nispar de Chavila, then the whole bundle unravels. And that means you could give to anybody that you want Rishon. You don't have to give Rishon to a Levi. You can, but you don't have to give Rishon to a Levi. The bundle unravels. V'amar Abaye Naktinon Ein Sham Levi. Let's say you call the Kayin, and there's no Levi, Kairin Kayin. And then for Sheni you call Kayin. We'll see, you call the same Kayin. In other words, you say Enkan Levi, and you call up the same Kayin. Ini, is that so? V'amar Rabbi Yochanan Kayin Akar Kayin Lo Yikra. You shouldn't call a Kayin after a Kayin. Mishum Kama Shorishim, because if you call a Kayin after the Kayin, people will say that maybe you found out that the first Kayin was no good. Levi Acha Levi Lo Yikra. You shouldn't call a Levi after a Levi. Thank you very much. Thank you. I already made a bracha l'shem alav malka. Chamen b'matzah Shabbos melugma. Excuse me. Levi Acha Levi Lo Yikra. You shouldn't call a Levi after a Levi. Mishum Kam Shneim. Oh, here we're worried about maybe we'll disqualify one of them. Either we'll say we're calling the second Levi because we found out the first Levi was not a Levi, or we'll say that the second Levi is really a Yisrael. So the Gemara says, how could you call a Kayin after a Kayin? Ki kamrinan ba'isa Kayin. When there's no Levi, we call the same Kayin to lane a second time. So the Gemara says, if you notice, there's a disparity over here. By a Kayin after a Kayin, we said we're worried about the pagam of the first Kayin. By a Levi after a Levi, we're worried about the pagam of either of them. So the Gemara says, Maishna Levi Acha Levi. Di'ika pagam shneim, we're worried about maybe one or the other is no good. Di'imrei chad minayu lav Levihu, one of them is not a Levi. So Kayin Acha Kayin Nami, why don't we say, you said that we're worried about just the first one. Why don't we say that we're worried about one of them? Imrei chad minayu lav Kayin. Says the Gemara, it's talking about where the second one, you know his father was a Kayin. So the Gemara says, well then by a Levi also, it should be talking about where the second one, you know the father was a Levi. Why yet by the Levi are we worried about both, and the Bekayin we're not worried about both? Ela Imre, obviously, even if we know that the second one's father was a Levi, we're afraid that maybe Mamzeres Oinesina Nosif, maybe he married a Mamzeres or a Nesina, and that's why the son is not a Levi, or Paslei the Zare. So Hachanami Yimrei, so here also, why aren't we worried about the second Kayin? Maybe Grusha Chalutza Nosif, maybe even though his father was a Kayin, maybe he married a divorcee or a Chalutza Va'achle Lazare, and his seed became a Chalul. Says, well, yeah, but you called him up to the second Aliyah. If he was a Chalul, then he shouldn't get the position of Levi. So obviously he's not a Chalul. So obviously, since we know his father was a Kayin, he's a good guy. And therefore it only cast aspersions on the first one. Saif Levi Mikahavi wouldn't be called up for Levi. So now the Gemara says, we said that if you call a Kayin after a Kayin, We're worried about the pekam of the second one, that it's not good. Or excuse me, we're worried about the first one, that he wasn't good. But ulaman, who are we worried about? Ili Yishvin, if for the people that stay in shul, well, we see that we only called up 7 people. On Shabbos, you need 7 kairim. If we didn't redo the first one and call up an 8th, obviously the first one was good. Hakachazile, we see that we didn't call up an 8th person. Elul Yitzim, we're worried about the people that have to leave early. Okay, Rabbi say, just getting underway, but already finished the first daf. If you're listening on Kalash, I'm sorry, I'm going to hang up on you and call right back.